Hi, my name is Jim Sarbh, and we will be releasing a lot more episodes of Crew Cut in the coming days and weeks to follow. But before we get to the rest of the episodes, we wanted to do a quick chat with an extremely talented animator, Debjyoti Saha. He runs an animation company called Gopo Animation. What does Gopo mean?
Gopo is a Bengali term which means stories.
Stories animation, story animation.
Yes.
How did you get into animation?
I just fell in love with movement, having the control of drawing to achieve movement. And that suspension of disbelief that somebody will see a bunch of drawings on silly paper and they'd flip through it and they'd be like, oh, that was some movement, that was magic. From 5 frames to 10 frames to 12 frames to 24 frames to 1 second, 5 second, 10 second, started growing, making. I got addicted to it. It's almost like a snot animation. But it was good fun. And I fell in love with it, felt completely in control of what I can create. And it's like, as long as I have all my limbs together, I continue to do this for the rest of my life.
Okay. So the opening credit sequence to Crew Cut and the logo, even the text that Crew Cut is written in, was all designed by Debjyoti Saha. Had lots of discussions leading up to that, and we just wanted to take you guys through the process of getting to what you finally see at the opening of every one of our episodes. The way that it all started is I was introduced to Deb through Akash Bhatia, who had made a music video with you before. What was it? What was the music video?
It's called Chitta by Pradeep.
Yeah, and I thought it was just fantastic. And then we got on a call, and he was interested in taking the conversation forward. So I read out to him what I had typed up and what I had been putting out to anybody that I spoke to about the idea for the opening animation. This is the first message that we have on WhatsApp going back
April 2023.
So this is the first text that I sent him. And then how did you react to this?
It was quite bizarre, to be honest. The idea itself, I just pranced upon it immediately once you said it. But it got me jolting. You want a character. You want an actor who gets shed off his limelight.
Yeah.
That's the main concept of the Crew Cut intro.
Yeah, and the idea for me was initiated as the actor, but slowly it kind of evolved as the solitary figure.
Yeah.
Be that whoever it may be. If anyone who steps up to take all the credit in a film when there are so many different departments that have resulted in the person standing there, that's what I ideally wanted to shave off.
Right.
Yeah.
And from there, the first draft of the idea is what I pitched to you, was this guy who thinks he's the end-all and be-all character. He comes in for a shave or a haircut, and then shit happens with him.
It was slightly more in the comic space, right? Of this character with a camera head, and it was a full body, and it was interacting with things.
Yeah, he was dancing, he was emoting, he was crying the other time. He gets mopped by a trimmer, and then what we see inside the brain. The first draft, if I remember correctly, I remember showing you that the brain, a hemisphere falls into halves, and we show different clogs in the brain. There is some kind of cinematography, there's some kind of writing department that's working. The idea kind of was there, and you were like, okay, I'm not impressed. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be a long but very exciting negotiation with with Jim on this for sure.
And actually the biggest learning for me was that in order to explain to a visual storyteller something, I think you needed visual prompts, and the word prompts weren't enough. So these were the images that I drew out. There was the face, and then there was the hair movement, and then there was the actor that formed, and then the actor was doing some like kind of chutia stuff. I think I took pictures of these or showed it to him on the video call, being like,
Yeah.
this is this. So we start over here, and then we kind of go over here, and to supplement that also, I think I just got on a video call with Deb, and I was like, okay.
So the first frame is this, okay? And then the camera moves here. And then the camera moves back down. And then it kind of moves away. And then you see the entire frame, including the hair actor. And then after the shoop happens in the hair actor's caught, the camera goes up and goes into the brain. So I kind of took him on that little journey into the brain. And I think that's when it all took me.
Totally. Yeah. And I think that's the best part about like this collaboration with you. Honestly, like I'm not very used to clients in animation that understand the medium very much. So thankful to you. So then the next idea was, let's make it more absurd. First shot was the camera head. I remember making you a sketch of that camera head, and you really enjoyed that.
I loved it. What made you come to that particular camera head?
Honestly, a bunch of references. Immediately went through a bunch of vintage camera pictures. And you know those blocky, big, it immediately looked like a head which is a camera.
Yeah.
Because you have the lens here, you have the whole, the head shape over there, winders that look like could be substitute for ears or some other parts. It just was there. I could see it. So I was like, okay, if we want a camera head, probably this would be the way to go, an amalgamation of a certain kind of camera with a human element in it, which, as you had rightly mentioned, it shouldn't look like an Arnold Schwarzenegger version of RoboCop.
Yeah.
It shouldn't look like RoboCop.
Yeah.
It should look like can't pinpoint.
Is it a man? Is it a woman?
Yeah, you can't pinpoint anything out of it, but it just feels right. Achieving that was a process, but it was really free-flowing, honestly.
The first frame, you had the face. The shutter was moving slightly, almost like an eye was like winking at you, right? And moving slightly. And that was giving the face some kind of life, right? And then the next thing that happens is the hair starts to curl up. As the hair started to curl up and form over the head, I wanted the camera to move with it and us move with the hair and see this person created, bam, spotlight. And then we pull out a little bit back to the original frame where we can see both the face and the actor up on top before it got sized out.
Right.
Why was that proving difficult to do without a cut?
If you do not want a cut in the middle and the camera needs to continuously flow, it's either you work with 2D or you work with 3D. In 2D animation, if we had to achieve that, we either need a huge canvas to work with. So it's a huge white space. And we have one small box, 1920, 1080, whatever, as the camera. That's our camera. And we have a huge canvas to work with, and we draw all over, hair, everything, draw everything, and then move the camera at the end. That proves a little difficult in 2D animation because there is absolutely no limit that we can put to, like, say, for example, the canvas size is going to be huge. And with that kind of an animation proper, I wasn't sure if I can achieve this without a cut. So I suggested that why not try this in 3D? If we did this in 3D, then the whole concept of the canvas goes away. It's a whole 3D space and we can place the camera anywhere we want. And then after we're done with the animation, move the camera around as you want it. But then there was another thing I was stuck with, which was the hair. What you wanted was the hair to move around and have a character of its own. And that kind of wraps around and then comes out from there, the character. It was great, but I was thinking of a way of achieving this without it looking gimmicky. You know what happens in animation? There's something called the Uncanny Valley. If it doesn't look real, it just looks odd.
You were saying there are two different pipelines for 2D and 3D. Could you explain a bit more about this?
There are two parts to animation. Majorly, there are many other ways of doing animation, but mainly categorized as 2D and 3D. As Goppo and as an animation filmmaker, I work in fairly 2D hand-drawn animation. It's all frame by frame. There are great advantages to it. Of course, there are pros and cons and everything. Pros are, it looks amazing, which is why I do it. If you can draw it, it's right there in front of you. So it's like that shakalaka boom boom pencil. But the cons of 2D animation is, since everything is drawn frame by frame, it is very imperative to maintain volume of things. Say, for example, if I'm drawing this glass is just doing this. This is the animation. Okay? If I have to draw this in a 24 FPS, then I would draw this frame, then I would draw this frame, then I would draw 2 frames within this. So once I play it, it looks like this, right? So it continues going like that. But all while, the volume of the glass has to be maintained very well.
What do you mean by volume?
Volume in the sense it cannot squeeze, it cannot.
They have to be identical.
It has to be exactly more or less identical. So it makes it all the more
Time consuming.
time consuming and tougher, and just doesn't make sense in 2024. The camera head didn't need to be drawn, or we didn't feel the need to be drawn again and again. So it just made sense for us to create a camera head in 3D.
And what program is used for that?
So we used a program, it's an open source program called Blender.
Oh, how does it work? How does it work? Yeah.
So it's called modeling. The concept, the idea of creating something from scratch is just like a lump of clay, and you model. And then you have the camera head. Shout out to Vaibhav Negi. He was the guy who helped us take care of the complete 3D aspect of it.
So you sent him the images.
Yeah.
And then he made it out of clay, more or less, on this digital.
More or less.
On this digital
So basically,
clay.
well, what happens is the first image that we were really happy with, I sent him that. He has the option to place it on one plane in Blender with that sketch, and then basically take that lump of clay and then stretch out according to the dimensions of the drawing.
Right, okay.
And then once he has a 2D face of that, he turns it around, extrudes it, makes it look like 3D.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's
And
fun.
then you have to color each bit. And
Yeah. Then you can, so what you can do is, say for example, now you've created the camera head. Imagine this is like normal gray color. That's the base color that stays. Then you just click the color, you select the face, and then you fill in that color, and you have a green book. And then you texture, you can paint textures on it. So what we did was, if you see this area, there's a little bit of a dimple over here, so we have added a little bit of shading over here. We've added metal shadings on the head. Everything was done completely on Blender.
Once you have the 3D model of the face, in Blender itself, you can decide where the camera moves or no. That just gives you the model. Then you have to put it into another program in order to move a camera around it, spin it, rotate it. How do you do all of that?
So now we can place a camera, which is a virtual camera, and then give like, okay, I need 6 seconds of this guy turning. So we keep the camera, we either animate the camera, we keep the camera's place and animate the head, depending on what is required. And then we have a 6-second animation of that. So Weber gives me a render of that, which I implement into my 2D animation on top of it, whatever is required, frame by frame, and then we put it in another software, which is Adobe After Effects, which is the compositing software, where we composite all of the different layers that we have just created. We bring the 3D, we place the 3D, we put 2D animation, whatever effects animation, we have the color, we have some line art, we have the hair, we have everything in place, and then we make it look good with some lighting. Once we have what is the final image looks very similar to the first tile frame that we created. If it looks similar to that and we are happy with it, then we can go ahead and render the hell out of it. But the idea mainly is to create first set of visuals at the beginning of the project that we are really happy with. And then it's a constant cop and robber chase to achieve that vision throughout the animation. The other aspect was the hair that we needed to create. So what happens with hair is, hair can be all flowy, but the base of that hair needs to stick to that camera head throughout. I think this is the nth number of problem that we faced, where we weren't able to move the hair as per our will. 3D is trying to understand, okay, what do you want me to do with the hair? What do you want us to do with the hair? Does it go this side? Does it go this side? It's not actually flowing. So what we did was, we created the whole hair in 2D, placed a bald camera head there, placed the 2D animation hair layer on top of it. Within that, we did some 2D frame by frame hair moving around, making the guy come out. We now have a certain kind of a being that appears from the film-looking hair of this camera head. Then the spotlight falls on him, and his tinfoil-like
Skin.
the skin kind of shimmers like gold. He puts on a show in front, and then he cries. Another constraint that was there is you can't move the camera.
Yeah.
And there are no cuts.
Yeah.
So how does this guy emote in like 1 or 2 movements that just conveys it immediately?
Actually, it was a friend of mine named Gomba, his suggestion of the flashes. I think that just brought it all completely home. So the hair forms, and then the spotlight hits it, like it's my time to shine, right? The actor kind of goes up like this and then falls to his knees screaming. And for me, that image was always very clear because I've never in my life have I ever seen another human being fall to their knees screaming apart from in films. But in films, it's used a lot. Yeah. So I thought it was a good trope to signify clearly that it was an actor doing this in that moment.
These were all the hurdles. Yeah, the hair and this guy, how is he going to show that this guy is an act and everything? This was all the hurdles. The fun part, where I think was the smoothest and we had the most fun, was once we got inside the head.
Totally.
Because at that time was really fluid, and it was just about all these layers of the brain kind of opening up in different colors, multicolored, very trippy visuals.
I mean, you're saying that it was really fun, but I thought that would be the hardest part, is figuring out how to flow seamlessly from all of these different bits. So how did you make those decisions?
It was just like putting it down on paper. What we try to do is always try to get to the specifics of what we are seeing on screen, because only then we can work backwards and figure out how we're going to achieve that. So when it starts, okay, we're getting inside the head and the head is opening up in this gooey, beautiful thing. And then what is the first image that we're actually seeing? So then all those hemispheres that are like coiled up against one another, why doesn't a guy pop out of there using a trumpet? That was the first image that we made a little rough layout of that. Like, okay, this looks nice. In those milliseconds that the vision will pause, we were really happy with that frame, that first frame. So from there, we started thinking, okay, this is a hemisphere, all these round things. What can we go into next? So those hemispheres kind of transformed into those headphones. Of the headphones. And that kind of goes like that. Okay, now we have the second image. That was the headphones. Now what? Okay, we have this space in the middle. What do we do about it? Why not? That hand comes up and goes down. And once the hand goes up, we understand, okay, this is the music dada doing something on his scales. That goes up. Okay, now what? Now let's make it more crazy. How do I metamorphosize into something else? The hand comes down, and that we maintain that scale. But now those boxes kind of are also similar to film.
Exactly.
And once that gets pulled down, we see just layers and layers of film going down. So why not treat that as a stop motion kind of a thing where we are seeing some image in the middle? What's the image we are seeing? Why not bring in certain elements and then make a person out of it? Okay, let's do that. Let's try that. Some person lands up in the middle, and now what? Now what do we do with this guy? How do we bring in the ideas of styling, costume, all of that? Okay, let's try something. Let's slice him in the middle. Because it's a splice of film. So immediately we splice the film in the middle. The film goes out. The film comes back again, and we see this guy in different uniforms. And that just conveys the idea of costume changes. The upper is changing, the lower is changing, and there is some kind of a mismatch between that. And that guy is kind of figuring out what is happening. Why is there a mismatch? And the mismatch happens to such a level that certain weird things start appearing, like a end of a table, some up above is some kind of some clock, some lamp. So that kind of conveys production design into it. Then some other blap happens.
The clapper comes in, and then it turns into a book.
Right. So the clapper comes in, which is like, okay, now that's also in production. And then the clapper opens up like pages, which is just typing, people writing. So that conveys writing. And there's a big eye that comes in behind everything. There's a little liner that goes around, which conveys makeup. And that eye is like the eye of the director, and then everything comes down together and we come out of it. Oh, so that part was fun as just doing it. Okay, this is not working. This would be fun. Take a look at it. And that probably when we showed you that, you didn't have too many changes on that. When we were like, okay, this is great. You enjoyed that. And we really enjoyed that.
So, for example, the image right at the end after we come out of the brain, right? We come back out of the brain, which is not something actually I had envisioned, but I really liked that it ended finally on that image. I thought we'd just end in the brain with a blam kind of crew cut, but instead it was Debjyoti's idea to come back out of the brain, spin the camera head around and end on the logo that'll eventually be the thing that is synonymous with the idea of crew cut. So that was all Debjyoti. So for example, once it comes out and it starts to spin, I had that idea like crew cut was shaved in the side of the head, or you had the idea?
Yeah.
I don't remember. We wanted to see the brain still moving underneath the text as it spun. Now, was that achievable in the 3D model, or was that 2D animation you had to do on top of the 3D?
Like I said, it was a good combination of 3D and 2D that we did. The camera head and the camera animation of the head, the turnaround and going in and going out, was 3D. Well, there were many other things that supported the animation, which is all 2D. So say, for example, the brain once is chopped off, completely 2D, because it's very gooey and it's like shines, and it was not achievable for us to do it in 3D. We could have, but then it would have been a whole different ball game altogether.
Okay.
That was the first thing. So we achieved that frame by frame on in 2D. So once it goes in, we have, say, for example, like 36 frames of the camera going inside the brain. So we have 36 frames to work with. We did draw the brain on top of it frame by frame with the camera movement. And then basically then when we were happy with it, we just cleaned up and colored it.
What do you draw?
Whatever we draw on, we usually draw on pen and paper. Firstly. But if not, we mainly use a pen tab. It's called a Wacom Intuos. It's a small pen tablet that we use to draw and convey those strokes onto the computer digitally. Mainly for designing work, it's all Photoshop. But for animation, there are a bunch of alternatives that we can use. Say, for example, Adobe Photoshop. There's TV Paint, which is like the industry standard of work. And there are a bunch of alternatives.
Because I know nothing about it. So you take that original image, right? You put it in Photoshop and you draw everything out. Every frame is drawn out there.
Yeah, everything is completely from scratch, from the idea itself. Especially for this project, everything was digital. From the first conceived idea to all the notes, everything, because it just made sense for me to draw it on and just take a picture of that, send it to you. It's like immediate conversation.
Today I'm looking through all of the images we've shared with each other and the stuff since the beginning. The first image I sent you of like how it should look like a face was the castle from Howl's Moving Castle. You sent a bunch of references afterwards for how you imagine the synapses of the brain and how juicy and colorful it should be.
So there's a Japanese animator.
So nice of just how synapses and muscle and brain and goo and chewing gum and it gives the impression of all of these things of being inside a body. I think the first visual cues that we go for immediately after listening to any kind of brief is like, okay, what do we see? What are we seeing visually? And is it a certain type? Is it a certain kind of, say for example, is it a anime-esque? Is it Disney style, American? Is it influenced from major arts of India or anywhere else? What is the influence of what we are watching on screen? What is it telling, instead of like not just the storytelling aspect of it, but what is it actually feeling like? What is the vibe of it? What is the feel of it? Everything I work on is eventually, every new project is new and something different. So everything has to have a different style. So yes. What are some animated shows you've been watching lately or films that you've really enjoyed?
I think I really enjoyed one, it's an animated series on Netflix, Carol and the End of the World.
Okay.
It's amazing. You've got to watch it. If you have some time, a meteor is about to hit the world and the world has like some finite number of days to live. So it's about one story of that one person named Carol and how she goes about living. It's really, really fun. Writing is amazing.
Lovely.
At the end of the day, everything comes down to writing.
Right.
Whatever we are doing, it's all because somebody's sitting there and writing pages after pages and throwing that in the dustbin, seeing if it works, if it doesn't work. And I feel like writing is amazing.
Completely agree. Have you watched Scavenger's Reign?
Oh, loved it. Yeah, loved it.
Have you watched Primal?
Oh,
Kendi Tarkovsky?
Big fan of it.
I love that guy.
And I'm glad that people like Gendy have come out of making Powerpuff Girls and said, ki, okay,
Dexter's
I'm
Laboratory.
make it something that I also enjoy and people like me enjoy.
Yeah.
That's why Adult Swim came about.
Yeah.
And then shows like Scavenger's Day come about, because I see there is a big following of anime, which is art form that is developed for centuries in Japan, and you have fans all over the world. That's amazing. I've seen people involve anime into their work, which is just comes out of an immediate urge to just pay homage or like whatever. But anime is not us. I can't tell the story of a normal guy in Mumbai facing the rains and trying to go about his work. In anime, I can make it, but I don't know if it serves the exact purpose, because
Would it be
that's
true to the
that's
story?
not India. That's not Mumbai.
Are there Indian art traditions that you think would be well adapted or would well suit an animated film or series set here?
I think a lot of that has happened already.
Okay.
People have over the years honed and tried to represent art of India in animation or whatever they've done. Especially in animation, there are so many music videos. There was a music video about a song which was sung by a rapper which comes from the Gond community, and the whole music video was in Gond tribal art but animated. Similarly, I think there are so many artists that have developed their art from the regions they come from. Say, for example, so many artists and animators and filmmakers likewise have developed from the Bengal style of art. It's coming from Ramkinkar Bej, or if it is coming from Upendra Kishore Rai Chaudhary, or if it is coming from Satyajit Ray or his father, who has done immense work in art. Weirdly enough, that has inspired a bunch of artists and filmmakers or whoever. I mean, it's common folk. There's a reason why we still hold them to their pedestal till today. This is why, because we seek inspiration from these guys. What I have developed as a style for animation is honestly comes about the brushes that I'm using on that particular software, and the way I have been drawing certain things a certain way. My major inspirations have come from all my peers around me, all the artists that I've looked and searched books of, all the animation studios that I watch and still continue to watch works of. A part of it comes from my father, who had a hobby of drawing. I feel like it's all a combination of all these things which makes us what we are today. I mean,
Yeah.
just drawing.
Actually, the links are inextricable. There's no way to really pass all of the different influences and inspirations and all of the variety of things that's led you to where you are, which is why I like that brain sequence so much, of how it flows in and out. Every department, almost every department you talk to that's not an actor, talks about collaboration, how dependent they are upon other people in order to get their job done. Everyone constantly talks about these links that you can't actually separate into neat divisions of who does what. It is all a kind of living, breathing entity.
That's so true.
Yeah.
That's the concept of crew cut.
That's it. That's it. That's the whole concept.
Yeah.
There is a face which is simultaneously a film camera. On top of film camera face's head, or framing the face, is hair, perhaps overflowing film reel. The hair moves up, flows together, and morphs into an actor. Really emoting, silly posturing. Some clippers or scissors or knives fly in and shave the hair actor off the film camera face's head. The crew cut is so close, it exposes the brain of film camera face. We look down into the brain and see all the pulsing, moving parts of the filmmaking process. Cinematography, sound, music, editing, production design, costume, makeup, VFX, grading, etc. The brain is pulsing and delicious and messy and juicy and really alive. A little carnival. Blam! Crew cut. Shall I sit next to him? Shall we both be in the same frame? Come on. One day, we're going to make an animated film together.
Hell yes.
Hell yes. Come on.